Let's take a look at another example of simplifying complex fractions. Here's another example of a complex fraction, and we want to divide this numerator by this denominator. Now that's going to be a little bit difficult unless we simplify this a little bit. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to simplify the two fractions in both the numerator and denominator into one, and then we can divide those two and get our answer. So this is going to take the prior knowledge of finding a common denominator. So what we want to do is let's look at the numerator first. Let's look at the denominators of the numerator. So we have 4x and 2. And what we want to do is we want to find a common denominator. So the common denominator between 4 and 2 is going to be 4. Okay, so we want to make sure that both denominators have 4, and you notice that the left denominator has the x, but the right denominator does not. So that tells me that in order to make this 2 a 4, I'm going to have to times it by a 2, but I'm also going to have to times it by an x so that I can get 4x. Okay, and I'm going to do the same to the top. So what you do to the top, what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Okay, so that's going to simplify to 1 over 4x minus, and then 3 times 2x, that's just going to give me 6x over 4x. Okay, and now both denominators are identical. Okay, and then we can actually simplify that as one fraction. We can write that as one fraction because the denominators are now identical. So that's just going to be 1 minus 6x over 4x. Why? Because since the denominators are alike in both fractions, we can simply subtract the numerators, 1 minus 6x. Now we literally cannot subtract the two because those are different terms. So we just write it as 1 minus 6x over 4x. That would be one denominator. Now we look at the denominator here. We have 3. We're going to write that 3 over 1. Okay. So you can clearly see that the 3 is in the numerator, and then that's clearly written over 1. Again, we're going to have to find a common denominator. So the only way to make that possible is we look at the other denominator, which is 2x. So how do we make the 1 into a 2x? Well, we're going to have to multiply it by 2x, because 2x times 1 will give me 2x. But what you do to the bottom, you got to do it to the top. And then now we can go ahead and write that 2x times 3, again, is 6x. 2x times 1 is 2x, and then minus 1 over 2x. So our common denominator is now 2x. Okay, so again, we can write this as one fraction. So 6 minus 1 over 2x. And now you have simplified the two fractions into one in both the numerator and denominator. Again, we are going to write this. I'm going to just continue down here. Okay, I'm going to write this as 1 minus 6x over 4x divided by 6x minus 1 over 2x. Okay, so we want to make sure that we are rewriting it in a traditional way where we can understand that, though. So this complex fraction, okay, this complex fraction can be written like this, okay? Just like this, where the arrow is pointing, okay? So now the rules of division is keep, change, flip, okay? So that means that we are going to make 1 minus 6x over 4x. We're going to change the division to times, and then we're going to reciprocate or flip the second fraction. Okay, so when we do that, okay, now we can go ahead and multiply straight across. But before I do that, I want to bring your attention to this. I want you to bring your attention to right here, this and this. Notice they're very similar, but one is written backwards, okay? And traditionally, we normally write a term with the variable first, followed by the constant. That's generally the order of polynomials. You go from highest exponent to least exponent, followed by a constant if there are any. So we're going to rewrite this upper left-hand numerator, okay? We're going to rewrite it as this way, okay? We're going to write it as minus 6x plus 1 over 4x times 2x over 6x minus 1. Everything else is the same except I rewrote the upper left numerator. I put the x term first, followed by the constant last. Okay, I didn't change any signs, I just rewrote the order, rearranged the order. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and factor out this negative 1. Okay, so again, I'm going to kind of continue here, and I'm going to factor out that minus 1 so that I get 6x minus 1 over 4x times 2x over 6x minus 1. And now you can clearly see that the 6x minus 1s will in fact cancel out. All right. And in addition to that, we can actually cancel out one of the x's here. You see that? The two x's. We can also reduce the 2 into 2 goes 1, 2 goes into 4 2 times. So now you're just left with, you notice everything in the numerator is canceled out except the minus 1. And then there's a 2 here, so that is like that. You can also rewrite it as negative 1/2. Okay, so when the numerator is negative, you can just write the negative off to the side, and that's the equivalency of the fraction. It's the same thing. And then this would be your final answer, okay?